the number one thing I look at with clients is what are your supplements and what are your prescriptions? Because then we can cross-reference that now through genetics. And there was a time where the FDA didn't release that, but within the last year, that's all public source knowledge. And even with the AIs that are available now, we can integrate those in. So if someone's tracking their symptoms on their own, we can take that data and then we look at how that supports the whole body.
Thank you so much for joining us on another awesome episode of Bioenergetics Beat. I'm Heather Gray, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and a bioenergetic practitioner, and today is brought to you by Nikki, Unleash the Wellness Within. It's a easily affordable, highly effective approach to optimize wellness. It's a wearable device that puts frequency better based life in your hands and on your wrist. Make sure to stick to the very, very end because we have a wonderful giveaway you're not going to want to miss out on. But you're also not going to want to miss out on one word that my guest is going to talk about because we're going to dive deeper into health strategies, right? And looking into your genetics. I think we're also going to talk a little bit about peptides and a little bit about, there's going to be a lot of different things that we dive deeper into this conversation, but you're not going to want to miss one word out of my next guest's mouth. And without further ado, let's welcome Wendy Jean Schell to the show.
Hi, it's so nice to finally see you in person and meet you. I know we've been anxiously awaiting to do a podcast like this, so thanks for taking the time. And I can't wait to share more with your audience.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background. Why should we care, right? I know a lot of people who are talking about some of these more complex, quote unquote, alternative health stuff is because of their own pain to purpose story. I also noticed, I think in your bio headshot that you had a sticker of some sort, which looked like to have a tick on it, and I don't know if you know, but Nikki, got started with the wave one, which was huge into the Lyme disease world with the frequencies around Lyme. And that's kind of how we got our start. So just curious to know a little bit about you and how you got started.
Sure. By trade, I'm a professional photographer. I live in Western Pennsylvania, and during about 10 years ago, 15 years ago at this point, I started to get really sick and my doctors just couldn't figure out why. And I had an unfortunate life history of some illnesses that were rare. So I had a little bit of genetic testing done in my 20s. But I came to a point where I couldn't photograph anymore and I was bedridden. And through research of my own and that unfortunate pain to my purpose, it was Lyme disease. I was misdiagnosed for 10 years with Lyme disease, chronic co-infections, vitamin mineral deficiencies. So every time I tried to get better, things kind of blocked me in a way. So I kept educating myself. And unfortunately, during COVID, I was starting to get back into photography again, but I was unessential due to the regulations in the state. So unfortunately, I got bit by another tick, but that time I got a rash. So there was no question on that it was Lyme disease the second time. But unfortunately, the doctors that I was working with weren't also allowed to practice due to our state regulations. So it was easier for me to go back to school. So I got certifications in holistic health coaching with Mind Body Green, and I also did their functional nutrition program because food always seemed something that no matter what my protocols were for Lyme disease, that was a big piece of my healing. But then I found myself not getting better. The typical treatments that everybody was using just still weren't quite working for me. And I've always been the one to say, okay, why? And why do you think that? And I ended up doing genetics on my own for myself and my son is this missing piece. And then once I got my life back and my health back, I really had I'll say love for it, and more so if there are other people like me that have tried all the protocols and have tried all these things, there has to be something else like frequency, like the genetics to say, it's my body just being pushed past capacity. So I furthered my education again to become a certified functional genomics practitioner. So not only do I look at a gene, and a lot of your people are here for Lyme, there's a lot of conversation on MTHFR. So that was something that I knew about, but in my work now, I don't just look at one gene SNP, I look at the entire methylation pathway, and then I look at that in relation to detox pathway, in relation to nutrition and hormones. So it's a field that I think will be the one of the future of medicine, and I'll share why in that kind of peptide conversation. But It's really great to know that there's people like you and there's people like me in the community that supports Lyme disease. Like we all found a way to come back to each other in one way or another, whether it's speaking or in books. And I know that it's something in the United States. So my pin that you referenced, for 3 years, I've sat in legislation hearings for the Center for Lyme Action. They're a 501(c)(4), and all they do is legislative work in the United States. And living in one of the highest states and in one of the highest areas in the country, which is essentially the world, it was just another calling that I had once I got my health back, is to say, okay, how can I support others that are looking for a voice, an advocate, or an alternative treatment?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I recognized that symbol because what do they do? The flyover for Lyme? What's it called?
Yeah, yeah. Fly into DC. Before COVID, we literally everybody flew in, and then after that, it's more virtual, which is really great because it gets to bring everybody from across the United States together and in front of us. They do really fabulous training, and then that also has helped me work with other nonprofits in the Lyme community space to be an advocate, to provide guides, to really look at chronic Lyme. So if I have someone that's coming to me in genetics, that's the first thing I can look at. I can look at from a genetic risk of chronic Lyme to say, okay, we know your body's not necessarily built to handle this. Now here's our next step.
Yeah, no, it is incredible what they're doing. Was involved with them for about a year and a half in Colorado, and it
Mhm.
was just so exciting to see in such a short period of time, just bringing these awareness to some of these state representatives and the difference between like next to no money for Lyme funding to the money that we were actually getting. Granted, it wasn't near what we needed, but it was a start, and it was just awesome to see in such a short period of time all
Yeah.
that start to add up. So
Yeah.
great, great
And it's
work
only
there.
going to get bigger. It's
Yeah.
only going to keep growing because more people are like, oh, wait, it's not, it's, it might be considered a rare disease, but I mean, statistically, it's not. I mean, 500,000 Americans are diagnosed, and that deserves more attention, like you said, than malaria gets like $1,200 a patient, and Lyme gets a few hundred, or it's 1,000. But it's very off kilter for what's actually happening in America.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even when they were showing like the number between AIDS and Lyme and, the type of money that AIDS still gets compared to Lyme disease and how much larger Lyme and even I think it was like breast cancer. So I think those were like the top three. And it was crazy to see how little people were getting diagnosed with these things and the amount of money they were getting compared to Lyme. So it's definitely off kilter, but it's good to see that things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So on that note, it's a really great place. We're going to pause for a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to dive deeper into what are you talking about when you mean systems and strategies and symptoms and genes and how all that, plays into work? Because I know there's probably quite a few people out there that are like, I've tried everything,
Mhm.
and they're still sick. So I know they're going to be interested to hear what you have to say. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
There's a new word for wellness, Nikki. Nikki is your personal wellness companion, a sleek wearable device that lets you choose from a variety of programs to match your day. With a simple tap on the Nikki screen, you can explore wellness programs created for different moments and lifestyles. From busy mornings to quiet evenings, Nikki puts a variety of wellness experiences right at your fingertips and on your wrist. Life moves fast. Nikki moves with you. It's a portable way to bring wellness technology into your everyday routine, wherever life takes you. Your day, your choice, your wellness program. Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. We are Nikki.com.
Fantastic. Welcome back. So yes, let's dive deeper into the nuts and bolts of this talk today. So tell us a little bit more about what do you mean from symptoms to strategy, and say that 10 times fast.
Yeah. So a lot of people are coming to me with these symptoms that their doctors can't figure out. And I do work with other practitioners and other people in the clinical setting too they really have tried everything. And the cool part about the work I do as a practitioner, I do use self-decode and Promise Edge, and it is something that other practices can enroll in. So then they're looking at a genetics, and then they're also looking at labs. So when we're looking to reduce symptoms, it's this whole body approach, right? And if the body's expressing a certain way, but they're not genetically at risk for it, then that's where we say, okay, what do we know expresses those symptoms? And then with it being a holistic base, it's lifestyle, supplements, food. So the strategies behind it are very one-on-one. So for me, for example, in my first Lyme disease infection, they thought the infection was cleared by doxy, which is the standard, right? Typical 14 days, but it wasn't helping me. And then after years of the symptoms kind of returning, it started to make more sense that my body maybe couldn't handle that protocol. So once I found my genetics, I was able to see that through my liver, I don't have the proper enzymes and mechanisms to break down most pharmaceuticals. So though it's the right path for some people, it was just kind of masking it for me. So I would feel better and then I was considered cured. But then when I'd have a flare up, so the accident, the illness, the injury, the trauma, then my body couldn't handle that capacity anymore. And then I started to express those symptoms. So where I look at Lyme patients, a lot of things in my research for the last 5 years really come into play so that a lot of people do have issues with MTHFR, which is part of the folate methylation system. So how well your body can metabolize, process, transfer, and one of the big pieces is folate. So if I have a salad, I'm not going to get all those nutrients, all those good enriched B vitamins from a natural food source because my body doesn't really know what to do with it, so to speak. And then I've had surgery. So I've had surgeries, unfortunately, on my stomach and my esophagus. So I'm not built even the way my DNA says that I should express. So then that's an added piece of that I looked at when I do really strategic is, do you have a gallbladder? Have you had issues with your liver? Are you on pharmaceuticals? And that's the number one thing I look at with clients is what are your supplements and what are your prescriptions? Because then we can cross-reference that now through genetics. And there was a time where the FDA didn't release that, but within the last year, that's all public source knowledge. And even with the AIs that are available now, we can integrate those in. So if someone's tracking their symptoms on their own, we can take that data and then have a conversation and say, okay, if you're not built for chronic Lyme, why are you still expressing chronic symptoms? Is it a toxicity? Is it a deficiency? And then we look at how that supports the whole body. Is it a hormone piece? For most women with chronic disease, there's an extra hormone factor that we have to look at. So it's really great that I can use this dashboard and I can plug in all of this data and then it cuts out the noise, so to speak. So I don't have to guess if I have a client that comes in and says, hey, I think my issues are still Lyme disease. I absolutely want to acknowledge the body's transformed if it deals with Lyme disease or a virus or some bacteria. Your body is not the same. However, if we know how the body's built and we know how it's expressing through symptoms and labs, then we can go back in and look at that individual strategy. And if it's just journaling food, or if it's getting a cool watch like you have, or if it's going and doing the sauna, I know some influencers really push cold plunges, but for me and how I'm built, that would really traumatize my body and I would feel worse than I would feel better.
Hold on for the people
Yeah.
in the back, because unfortunately, a lot of these alternative practices, God bless them. I love that they found something that they love and that it works for them, but there hasn't been a lot of research around this, especially in women, especially in women with chronic illnesses. So I live very close. I just came from a coffee shop here in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, that has a cold plunge in the back, and the community around that is almost quote unquote quote cult-like, right? Like this is good for everybody. And I'm kind of sitting in the corner because I love their chocolate drinks, but I'm like not a fan of the cold plunge. So thank you for bringing that piece in because we are not built the same, and what works for you is not going to work for somebody else.
Yeah, this is a great segue into peptides. I've been approached by some different companies and I understand the mechanism behind it. But as a functional genomic practitioner, I will state I'm not a medical doctor. I do not give medical advice. All these things should be through your medical care team. And I'd love to work with the medical care team when it comes to genetics. And what I found when I was interviewed by these companies, because they see all the things that I do and they're like, hey, do you want to talk about this? And I said, well, I would absolutely talk about it because I know it can work with some people. But in the genetic space now, we have a hypothesis where we can say, if you're struggling with weight management and energy metabolism, you may want to go a certain route. Or if I have a coach or a physician that I'm working with and they have someone that they've put on a specific type of peptide, and they're not responding, that's when we go in and run this genetic report and say, hey, look, this is probably more of a blood sugar issue, or this is more, how are you addressing the ATP and the energy? So even if you're going to go down the route of a lot of things, right, it's that same thing you just said. It's not one size fits all. The people that it's working for them, and that's amazing, because I know what it was like to have I was never quote unquote overweight, but I was inflamed. I had 20, 30, 40 pounds of inflammation I carried. And I can only imagine what someone's going through to try to find something when they've tried it all. But what I will say, it's just like everything else, pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, supplement, it should all have that genetic baseline underneath. And a lot of my testing is covered by HSA and FSA, and it starts at $400. So I know people that are spending $3,000 on peptides, and I'm like, is it based off your genetics? And they're like, no. I said, well, can you pause and spend that and wait to get the testing back, and then let's fine tune it. It saves time, saves money, saves frustration, saves any side effects that some people may have. So I really feel like no matter what the conversation is on social media or the headline, the future is going to be in that genetic space. We shouldn't have to wonder why, children are expressing ADHD or why they're expressing OCD. If we haven't looked at nutrition, I mean, I know your background too, and it's like, wow, the function of our body is functioning, not, oh, here's a symptom, here's a fix. It's here's a strategy. Let's fine tune it as we go. I know that the body takes time. I saw a really cool video today online. A guy had a cup of, it's like a wine glass for context, but it was filled with something that looked like coffee. And then he poured water in, and he's like, "This is what it takes to heal." And as the video kept going and kept going, the water was slowly changing and slowly changing. And I try to say that to anyone that is struggling with chronic health, or if your health is great, awesome. You're probably doing so many things right. If you have someone that's struggling, that's where you should come to me and say, okay, Wendy, how's my body built? Why is it expressing this way?
Well, absolutely. And you brought up a good point too, talking about, folks with Lyme disease and then even anything that comes up afterwards, they still think it's Lyme disease. Like once they've been diagnosed with that boogeyman, they think that it's always that boogeyman, but they don't realize the collateral damage that that boogeyman did to the rest of your body. I mean, I haven't flared from Lyme in years. And if I do have any kind of flares, it's more of an autoimmune type thing, this other type thing, not technically Lyme, because I've kind of put that to bed. But genetically, I do, express these different issues. So I thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of folks, they just automatically, anytime anything comes into their awareness, they're like, it's Lyme and Lyme's back. And it's like, no, 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 not necessarily.
Yeah, and
Um,
in frequency medicine, I mean, that is next level stuff. I've learned about it, and I know some people in the Lyme community that do use the Nikki watch, and it's like, man, there's so much more that we're getting to learn, and I'm embracing all of it. Like I tell everybody, teach me something new.
Oh, absolutely. And they're all tools in our toolbox, right? At the end of the day, it's always the foundations. You talked about that earlier. Diet, stress levels, what kind of sleep are you getting? Are you detoxing properly? Are you pooping, peeing, and sweating every day? Getting back to the basics. It's not sexy, but it's really where you got to lay that foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone that's interested, I'm sure in the show notes you'll put my website link, but you can go on. I have a 10 foundation assessment quiz. Sometimes people just need to take that quiz to just take 5 minutes to take a look at inventory of, if you will, of are they doing those things like drinking water? And I didn't know it was abnormal to sweat until I realized with dealing with Lyme disease, they're like, well, have you ever? And I didn't ever sweat even as a child. And that's the whole conversation about can Lyme be contracted as a child? Because I had symptoms my whole life. But when we look at that genetic piece, I wasn't able to process oxalates. So these superfoods that are so loaded with oxalates just weren't never served my body. So now that my body's kind of clear of a lot of things that it couldn't, I do use different frequency scans as well, in addition to DNA, because like you said, it's just a tool. And my goal with conversations with you and others is to share if you've tried everything else and you haven't seen me, or you haven't talked to Heather, or some of these other people I work with, why don't you give it a try?
Absolutely. Well, you jumped ahead to the shameless plug time of the show, so we will have all her information in the show notes. So if you want to learn more on how to work with Wendy, you can find her there. Also, to make sure to visit wearenikki.com/podcast and enter in BioBeats to get 10% off your Nikki device. And one of the ways we show appreciation to our customers is we give away one Nikki device and whatever frequency of the month is going on at that time every month. So stay tuned. Good luck. Join us every week for another awesome episode of Bioenergetics Beat, and have a healthy day.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health.
It looks like a little watch, but it's actually a frequency device. It's bioenergetic, so it has this little frequency light situation that goes into your arm.
This is my Nikki. It is a bioenergetic wearable that works by emitting a specific frequency carried by a red light, as you can see on the back. It's aimed at enhancing the body's natural healing process to improve wellness and reducing stress, pain, and inflammation. And to select a frequency, you tap it to wake it up, and then you slide to the screens that list the different frequencies. I have wellness or Lyme on mine. So if we want to pick one, we just tap on it, and you'll see the circles around, and there's a play button, play areas, tap there, and you can see the colors radiating that show that it's playing, and you would also see the red light on the back. And to stop, you just tap it again, and then you can slide and select a different frequency. I'm going to play afternoon. And you just tap, and away you go for your afternoon.
So they're two different things. You have the Nikki device, and then you have the frequency sets. And so right now they have the wellness frequencies, and they are absolutely incredible. So I absolutely love them.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. wearenikki.com. The views, information, and opinions expressed in this content are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of FreeMedica. FreeMedica Technologies, Inc. and its employees are not responsible, nor verifies accuracy any of the information contained in the following content. The primary purpose of this content is to educate and inform. This content does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services.